okay, Mamdani, he's won the socialist for the Democratic nomination, looking pretty good for winning the entire mayoral race. However, two interesting things. It appears that Cuomo is now out entirely. He's not going to run as an independent. And now there's growing pressure on Curtis Sliwa, the Republican guardian angel, to drop out, because even though we love Curtis and it would be so nice if a Republican could be the mayor, it's not going to happen. He has no chance. So there's pressure on him to get out so that the city can coalesce behind Eric Adams, who is the last best choice of stopping Mamdani. Right now, his relaunch at his campaign offices has people lining up around the block in New York. I mean, he's gotten a second life here. What's going to happen? And how did this happen?
Jeez. The funniest take I saw on the internet about all of this was, we've all been concerned about the Islamic extremist reaction and, potential consequence to America as a result of the Iranian bombing it. We just didn't know it would come so quickly in the form of a Democratic primary in New York City. Yeah, this is a bad news deal, but it's indicative of where the Democratic Party is. Their energy is all behind not just somebody who's totally unqualified to run a city like that, but somebody whose ideas are so antithetical to America in and of itself and so off the left-hand side of the map that it's like they're killing themselves.
And I love it. It's terrific. So here's the thing: is if you look at the breakdown of where Mamdani won in New York City, upper middle class and wealthy people came out in droves to vote for him.
Yep.
Yeah,
Park
look at his
Slope,
margins
Brooklyn.
in Bed-Stuy and Bushwick.
Yeah.
So
poor voters
the blacks,
went for Cuomo.
the Hispanics, and the working class all went for Cuomo. They did not vote for this guy. It was the white, college-educated, graduate degree holders across Manhattan and Brooklyn.
So this deranged kind of white guilt, which has just gripped the progressive movement of thinking that, well, white people are evil, capitalism is evil, even though I have a place in the Upper East Side, capitalism is a horrible system, doesn't work for people, even though, from Park Ave, I go shopping on Madison every day. It's a wonderful system for me, but I think we need a communist. They get what they deserve. They're going to get what they deserve. I, for so many folks, Megyn, yourself included, who no longer live in New York, who don't have a place in there, you see what they've done. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
They really whittled down the old talent pool of candidates, right? I mean, we was basically down to a choice between a guy who killed your grandmother and a socialist psychopath. Or the current guy, which is like no bucket of fruit either.
It reminds me of back in the day, CNN, I'm going to screw this up, but CNN launched a competitor to the Five. Roger had come up with the Five, and as he likes to say, people thought he named it that because it had 5 hosts, but he says, I named it that because that's about how long it took me to think it up. That he'd have 5 hosts on at 5 hosting a news program, and it's hugely successful. I think it's still the #1 show in cable news. And CNN decided to try to do the same thing, and they came up with, they have no original ideas. So they came up with their own group that was going to go like across from this group. And if memory serves, it was like Van Jones and S.E. Cup, and I can't remember who the others were, but I remember Roger's like, my God, he's like, they've got an atheist, they've got a communist, they've got a Marxist, I can't remember the other one. And he's like, so far, I'm rooting for the communist. Anyway, it's kind of the situation New Yorkers are in looking at these candidates. Like, I think I want the corrupt one who just takes money from Egypt. Allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at New York City, like, how America looks at a place like Syria during the Civil War. It's like we need to fund the moderate New Yorkers on the ground.
Right. I know, it's true. It's like, well, I was talking to somebody about Syria the other day, and it's like, it was taken over by Al-Qaeda, but they don't seem that Al-Qaeda-y. So, fingers crossed. Oh, God, these are not good positions to be in. You tell me, because there's a debate playing out about whether this guy Mamdani is a reflection of too much illegal immigration, and people don't assimilate and they bring their values, and then the white upper class that has the white guilt, buying into all those messages, and this coalition is born. And then there's another line of thinking that's more something you might hear from a Steve Bannon, which is like, it's the left's populist uprising. These young people can't buy homes and they can't get a decent job and they can't make it without both the mom and the dad working. And they want a revolution. They want to burn shit down. And the socialist message of just taxing the billionaires is extremely attractive. And by the way, those people have never lived during the New York of the 1970s or late 80s. So they've totally forgotten what these leftist policies actually lead to. So what do you think?
I think that the second thing that you mentioned, I think there's some validity to that. There are people who don't see any path to buy their own home out there off the left-hand side, but you don't need to put your hopes in a guy that's going to take away your guns and control the food flow into Manhattan. Everything that he is talking about is going to turn Manhattan into Gaza, and they're going to start shooting rockets from Flatiron into Williamsburg. This guy is absolutely insane. And he is not the only leftist out there. There has to be somebody else who is literally not going to get rid of the cops, like everything he's talking about. That doesn't put somebody in a home.
Yeah. It's also indicative of this larger lack of leadership within the Democratic Party in and of itself, right? I mean, both political parties from time to time have been captured by this like super radical, totally inconsistent with where the center of the country is type movement. It's full of energy for a variety of different reasons, but always there's somebody that provides some leadership to try to like recapitalize that and make sure that, no, these are good policies. Like you don't need a clinically insane person to lead you down the road in order to have what it is that you're all really looking for. I think Donald Trump's done a lot of that within the Republican Party. But if you look around at like Chuck Schumer in the home state here, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, they're the first ones who are just dodging all of this, right? A real leader would sit there and be like, look, we're not going to get rid of the NYPD, which is what this guy is campaigning on. Clearly, that's not something that Democrats believe in, except he can't say it. And he won't say it, which is how this has grown within the Democratic Party.
Yes, so Bill Clinton is congratulating him. That's another thing Bill Clinton weighed in on rather than our troops' victory, and seems to be all in on this guy, notwithstanding what we just said. Bill Clinton doesn't want the prisons open and the cops gone. Go ahead, Duncan.
Well, and neither do the lower income and middle income voters of New York. If there was this left wing populism idea that is so popular, you would think the New Yorkers who are struggling the most would have voted for it. Yeah, but they didn't. They voted for Cuomo, right? It was the affluent, the wealthy, over $100,000 a year who were voting for this guy. So I think it's more just the luxury beliefs of people who don't actually have to worry about, well, you abolish prisons, you're going to let all the criminals out in the street. But I live 100 floors up. So it doesn't matter to me.
This has become the base of the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Doorman building, security, possibly an iron fence around my doorman building. They can't get to me. And on the Upper East Side, where my children go to private school, we'll have no problems no matter what I vote for. That's why you get nutcases
that's
like
my thing is
Cynthia
I hope
Nixon.
Zohran can mobilize his supporters to actually storm the doorman building. I think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, that is what it's going to take. Well, that's a lot of people are saying that, like, let's let them see what the natural consequences of this decision are. Let's not save them from 1970s New York. Let's watch them experience it. It's sad to me. I mean, we moved right outside of New York, and it's like, I still love New York, and we go into New York, and I want my kids to be able to go there and your kids to be able to go there and watch a Broadway show and not worry about getting shot in the face. Yeah. It's just, this is a dark moment for the city and the country. And I for the Democrat Party, I don't know what their future looks like. We are days away from what has been dubbed by some the Rio Reset, what some worry could be a threat to the US dollar's global dominance in over 80 years. On July 6th, BRICS nations, that's Russia, China, India, and Iran, and some more, are expected to unveil their plans to circumvent the US dollar, thus cratering, its value. Some report that they've already been laying the groundwork as their central banks have been methodically divesting from the US dollar and US bonds in favor of gold. How can you protect your IRA or 401k from the fallout from this landmark shift? One option is to diversify with gold from Birch Gold Group. Historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, which is right now. Get a free info kit on tax-sheltered gold IRAs by texting the word MK letters to 989898. July 6th could mark a monumental shift happening among nations that control 1/3 of the world's GDP. Arm yourself with information to diversify your retirement savings. Text MK to 989898 and claim your free info kit from Birch Gold. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.